Listen carefully. There comes a moment in life when you realize that no one is coming to hand you your destiny. No savior, no rescuer, no shortcut. You are the one you have been waiting for. The power you've been searching for is not outside. It has been buried inside of you all along, waiting for you to rise, waiting for you to awaken, waiting for you to take charge of your life with courage and authority. And until you make that decision, life will keep dragging you where it pleases. But the day you unleash your inner leader is the day everything changes. Leadership does not begin with leading others. It begins with leading yourself. It begins with the discipline to rise when you feel like sleeping, the strength to choose wisdom over impulse, and the clarity to stand firm when everything around you shakes. You cannot guide anyone into victory if you have not conquered yourself. Leadership is not a crown placed on your head. It is a fire ignited in your spirit. And yet, you cannot lead with fire if you are enslaved by your emotions. This is where detachment becomes your greatest weapon. Detachment does not mean apathy. It means you no longer give power to chaos. You can feel the sting of betrayal, yet you do not crumble. You can face rejection, yet you do not lose your voice. You can walk through storms, yet remain unshaken. A true leader feels deeply, but refuses to be controlled by feelings. That is strength. That is authority. That is what gives you power over circumstances, instead of circumstances having power over you. A leader also carries vision. Vision is the ability to see beyond what is, into what can be. Without vision, you will live small, trapped in the ordinary, reacting instead of creating. But with vision, you rise each day with purpose. You see setbacks not as defeat, but as training ground. You see obstacles not as walls, but as doors to a higher level. Vision gives you direction, and direction gives you destiny. But vision without discipline dies. Discipline is the bridge between intention and reality. It is the quiet choices, the hidden sacrifices, the moments when no one is watching and yet you remain faithful to your calling. Leaders are not built in moments of applause, but in moments of silence. Your discipline is proof that you are ready to steward the destiny entrusted to you. And yes, leadership requires courage. The courage to step into uncertainty, the courage to walk alone if you must, the courage to stand when others sit in fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that purpose is greater than fear. When you choose courage, you shift atmospheres. You inspire others not because you are perfect, but because you dared. Leadership is never about domination. It is about service. The greatest leaders are those who understand that their strength is not measured by how many bow to them, but by how many rise because of them. You are entrusted with influence not to elevate yourself, but to lift others, to ignite them, to remind them of their own hidden power. And finally, a leader carries presence. When you walk into a room anchored in mindfulness and truth without saying a word, people feel it. Presence is influence. Presence is authority. Presence is born when you are fully alive in the moment, rooted in your purpose, detached from distractions, and unafraid to stand in who you are. Leadership is often misunderstood as something bestowed by titles, positions, or recognition from others. But the deepest truth is that leadership always begins within. Before you can guide anyone else, you must first master the art of guiding yourself. To unleash your inner leader is to step into responsibility for your own choices, thoughts, and actions. It is to realize that your life will only rise as high as the standards you set for yourself. True leadership does not wait for applause or validation. It is forged in private decisions, in silent battles, in the unseen discipline of the soul. Think about how often people look outside themselves for direction. They wait for opportunities, for permission, for someone to tell them who they are and where to go. But inner leadership refuses to wait. It begins when you decide to stop being a passenger and take the wheel of your life. It means you stop blaming circumstances, excuses, or even your past, and you accept that every step you take from this moment forward is in your hands. That realization may feel heavy, but it is also liberating, because once you own your life, you unlock the power to transform it. Leading yourself requires honesty. You cannot lead what you are unwilling to confront. A true leader looks in the mirror and asks the hard questions. Am I disciplined? Do my actions align with my vision? Am I living by principles or by impulses? Many avoid these questions because the answers demand change, but leadership thrives on self-awareness. You cannot correct what you will not admit, and once you see clearly, you can begin the process of shaping yourself into the kind of person capable of carrying greater responsibility. Self-leadership is also about consistency. Anyone can be motivated for a day, but a leader shows up even when inspiration is absent. This is where character is built, in the quiet mornings when you choose growth over comfort, in the late nights when you push through instead of giving up, in the repeated decisions to align with purpose rather than distraction. These small, invisible choices accumulate into strength. They forge discipline, and discipline becomes the backbone of leadership. But beyond discipline, there is vision. A leader within does not live aimlessly. They see beyond the moment, beyond the noise, beyond the present struggle. Vision keeps you steady when distractions call for your attention, and it keeps you grounded when difficulties arise. Without vision, you fall prey to every passing influence. With vision, you chart a course that others can eventually follow. When you lead yourself well, you naturally inspire others without even trying. People sense the authority of someone who is rooted, who is disciplined, who is clear. They may not know the sacrifices you've made or the battles you've fought, but they can feel the strength of someone who has conquered themselves. Leadership, at its core, begins with the mastery of your own life, and from that mastery flows the authority to lead others. Detachment is one of the most powerful principles a leader can embrace, yet it is so often misunderstood. People hear the word and assume it means indifference, coldness, or a lack of care. But detachment is not about abandoning love, passion, or responsibility. It is about standing so deeply rooted in who you are that nothing external has the power to unbalance you. A detached leader is not unfeeling. They are unshaken. They can feel the weight of circumstances, hear the noise of opinions, and face the storms of life, yet remain anchored in clarity. When you are attached, you are enslaved to outcomes, people, and emotions. You cling to control, desperate for everything to go your way, terrified of loss or rejection. And in that state, you are fragile because the world does not bend to your will. People will disappoint you, plans will fail, and circumstances will shift without your permission. If your identity is bound to those things, you crumble with them. But detachment frees you. It allows you to stand firm regardless of what changes around you. It does not mean you stop caring. It means you care from a place of strength, not desperation. A leader who practices detachment leads with authority because their decisions are not clouded by fear or personal bias. They can evaluate situations objectively, act with wisdom, and remain calm under pressure. Detachment allows them to separate emotion from action, so they respond rather than react. Instead of being consumed by anger, anxiety, or approval seeking, they remain centered, choosing the path that serves the greater purpose. This is why people trust detached leaders. They exude stability. While others panic, they remain calm. While others are swayed by opinions, they remain grounded in principle. Attachment also deepens relationships. Many think it creates distance, but in truth, it allows for pure connection. When you are detached, you do not cling to people out of insecurity or manipulate them out of fear of losing them. You love freely, without chains, because your sense of self does not depend on whether they stay or go. That freedom creates authenticity. It allows people to be themselves around you, and it allows you to serve them without hidden agendas. This kind of presence commands respect because it radiates inner confidence. To cultivate detachment, you must practice letting go, not of responsibility, but of the illusion of control. You must remind yourself that circumstances are temporary, emotions are fleeting, and outcomes are beyond your full grasp. What you can control is yourself, your choices, your discipline, your vision, your alignment with purpose. A leader anchored in this truth cannot be easily broken. Detachment transforms them into a steady force, unafraid of loss, unshaken by chaos, and unwilling to compromise their peace for temporary satisfaction. It is here that leadership becomes more than influence over others. It becomes mastery over self. And from that mastery, true authority is born. Confidence is often mistaken for arrogance or loud self-assertion, but true confidence is far quieter, deeper, and more unshakable. It is not found in boasting or in proving your worth to others. It is born from alignment with your inner truth. When you know who you are and what you stand for, you no longer need the validation of the crowd to confirm it. You walk with a strength that cannot be shaken by opinions, setbacks, or even failure, because your foundation is not built on external applause, but on internal conviction. To unleash the leader within, confidence must be cultivated from the inside out. It begins with self-knowledge, the courage to look within and embrace both your strengths and your flaws without denial. Confidence does not come from pretending to be perfect. It comes from knowing that even with imperfections, you are still worthy, still capable, still called to purpose. When you live with that awareness, you carry yourself differently. You speak with authority, not because you know all the answers, but because you are not afraid of questions. Confidence is also tied to discipline. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you push through resistance, every time you do what you said you would do, even when it is hard, you build confidence. It is the byproduct of integrity with yourself. Leaders who lack discipline often mask insecurity with bravado, but those who are consistent in their actions need no mask. Their confidence is earned, rooted in lived experience, and unshaken by external storms. Another aspect of confidence is detachment from comparison. The moment you measure your worth by someone else's success, you forfeit your authenticity. Confidence is not competing with another's path. It is embracing your own with conviction. Every leader has a unique assignment, a unique rhythm, and a unique contribution to make. When you stop comparing and start owning your lane, your confidence deepens. You stop asking, "Am I enough?" compared to them. And you start affirming, "I am enough for the purpose I have been given." That shift is liberating. True confidence is also expressed in humility. It may sound paradoxical, but humility is not weakness. It is strength under control. A confident leader does not need to diminish others to feel secure. They do not fear sharing credit, admitting mistakes, or seeking guidance, because their identity is not threatened by vulnerability. This balance of strength and humility is what makes their presence magnetic. People trust them, not because they are flawless, but because they are real, grounded, and consistent. The fruit of authentic confidence is influence. People are naturally drawn to those who carry certainty in an uncertain world. When you stand tall, rooted in your truth, others feel it. They sense the steadiness of someone who is not swayed by fear or opinion, and they are inspired to rise themselves. Confidence is not just about believing in yourself. It is about becoming a living testimony that faith, discipline, and authenticity create a power that cannot be denied. Vision is the compass of leadership, the guiding light that shapes direction, choices, and influence. Without vision, leadership becomes aimless, easily swayed by trends, circumstances, or the demands of others. Vision is not merely about seeing a destination. It is about perceiving with clarity what is possible, what is necessary, and what aligns with your purpose. It is the capacity to look beyond what is and see what could be. A leader without vision is like a traveler without a map, constantly moving but never arriving anywhere meaningful. True vision begins with alignment to something greater than yourself. It cannot be birthed from selfish ambition alone, because that kind of vision is narrow, fragile, and unsustainable. Real vision flows from purpose, a deep knowing that your life is not random, that you were designed with intention, and that there's a contribution only you can make. When you connect to that truth, your vision becomes less about personal gain and more about creating impact, about serving, about leaving the world better than you found it. Vision demands courage because it often requires you to see what others cannot yet see. It calls you to believe in possibilities long before they manifest. Many people will question or resist your vision because it stretches beyond their comfort zones, but a leader anchored in vision does not shrink back. They understand that visionaries are rarely understood in the beginning. They are willing to walk the lonely road, to stand firm when others doubt, and to keep moving forward even when evidence has not yet caught up with conviction. Clarity of vision also shapes decision making. When you know where you are going, distractions lose their power. You stop wasting energy on things that do not align with your path. Every choice becomes intentional. Every action weighed against the question, does this move me closer to or further from the vision? This kind of focus is what separates leaders who succeed from those who scatter their energy. A clear vision brings discipline because you refuse to settle for anything less than alignment with your higher calling. Vision is not static, it grows as you grow. What you see today may be only a glimpse of what will unfold tomorrow. That is why leaders must remain open, reflective, and willing to expand their perspective. Vision requires both patience and persistence. Patience to wait for the right time and persistence to keep building when results are not yet visible. It is a long-term commitment, not a momentary flash of inspiration. The greatest power of vision is that it inspires others. People are drawn to leaders who see further than they can, who can articulate a picture of the future so vividly that others begin to believe it too. Vision stirs hearts, ignites courage, and mobilizes action. When you carry vision with conviction, you become more than an individual pursuing goals. You become a beacon, a catalyst, a guidepost for others searching for direction. And this is where leadership transcends self-interest and becomes a legacy. Resilience is the silent strength that carries a leader through the darkest valleys and the most unpredictable storms. It is not about avoiding pain or escaping struggle. It is about meeting them head on and refusing to be broken by them. Resilience does not mean you will not fall, but it means every time you do, you rise again, wiser, stronger, and more determined. Leadership is not a path free of challenges. In fact, it often exposes you to greater opposition, responsibility, and sacrifice. Without resilience, the weight of these demands can crush you, but with it, every trial becomes a stepping stone to deeper strength and greater influence. At the heart of resilience is perspective. Life will test you with loss, disappointment, and uncertainty. But resilience allows you to interpret these trials not as punishments, but as preparation. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the resilient leader asks, "What is this teaching me? How can this shape me for the future I am being called to?" This shift in mindset transforms obstacles into opportunities. The very moments designed to weaken you become the soil where your inner power takes root. Resilience is also deeply connected to detachment. When you are attached to outcomes going a certain way, setbacks can devastate you. But when you are detached, you understand that failure is not the end. It is simply redirection. You do not measure your worth by temporary results. You recognize that even when one door closes, another may be opening, and sometimes the collapse of what you thought you needed is the clearing that makes space for what you truly require. Detachment gives resilience its unshakable core, because your stability is no longer tied to circumstances, but to your inner strength and purpose. Building resilience requires cultivating inner stillness. In the midst of chaos, the resilient leader returns to their center, grounding themselves in faith, clarity, and the bigger picture. They understand that panic never solves problems, and fear never builds solutions. It is calmness in the storm that preserves energy and clears the mind for decisive action. This is why resilient leaders often seem unshaken, even when facing overwhelming challenges. They have learned that peace within is more powerful than turbulence without. Resilience also grows through endurance. Every time you survive what once threatened to destroy you, you carry evidence that you can endure again. This creates confidence, not a shallow bravado, but a deep, quiet assurance that no matter what comes, you will rise. You stop fearing failure because you know you can recover. You stop fearing loss because you know you can rebuild. And you stop fearing uncertainty because you know that within you is the resourcefulness to adapt and move forward. The beauty of resilience is that it not only strengthens you, but also inspires those around you. When people watch a leader endure hardship with grace, they gain courage to face their own battles. Your resilience becomes a light, a living testimony that survival is possible, that strength can be born from struggle, and that no storm is greater than the spirit determined to rise. Discipline is the bedrock of leadership, the unseen force that shapes greatness long before it is visible to the world. It is not glamorous, it is not always celebrated, and it is rarely easy, but it is what separates those who dream from those who manifest, those who desire from those who achieve. Discipline is the daily decision to align your actions with your vision, even when comfort, distraction, and excuses tempt you to do otherwise. Without discipline, even the clearest vision and the strongest confidence will wither away, because dreams are sustained not by desire alone, but by consistent, deliberate effort. Discipline is the art of choosing long-term purpose over short-term pleasure. It requires you to silence the impulses that demand instant gratification and instead focus on what builds lasting results. A disciplined leader does not allow mood to dictate action. They move with intention regardless of how they feel. Feelings are fleeting, but discipline is steady. This is why leaders who are disciplined often outlast those who rely solely on bursts of motivation. Motivation may get you started, but discipline keeps you moving when the excitement fades. At its core, discipline is an act of self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you affirm your worth and strengthen your inner authority. The undisciplined leader constantly breaks agreements with themselves. They say they will rise early but hit snooze. They say they will commit to growth but choose distraction. They say they will stay focused but allow every temptation to derail them. This erodes confidence, because if you cannot trust yourself, how can you expect others to trust you? Discipline, therefore, is not punishment. It is the pathway to self-trust, and self-trust is the root of true confidence. Discipline also creates freedom. While it may feel restrictive in the moment, it actually liberates you from chaos and inconsistency. A disciplined life frees you from the tyranny of impulses, from the instability of procrastination, and from the regret of wasted potential. It allows you to build momentum, to progress steadily toward your vision, and to stand firm when distractions threaten to pull you off course. Freedom without discipline is an illusion. It often leads to bondage under laziness, fear, or mediocrity. Real freedom is found when you have trained yourself to do what is necessary, even when it is not easy. Another dimension of discipline is endurance. Leadership is not built in a day. It is forged in the repetition of small, consistent acts over time. The leader who practices discipline understands that greatness is not one giant leap, but thousands of steady steps taken faithfully. Every disciplined choice compounds into strength, clarity, and influence. It is not the intensity of occasional effort that defines success, but the consistency of daily commitment. Ultimately, discipline is love in action. Love for your future, love for your purpose, love for the people you are called to impact. It is the willingness to sacrifice ease today for excellence tomorrow. And when a leader embodies discipline, they become unstoppable. Because no challenge, no distraction, and no temptation can sway a heart and mind that has been trained to stay the course. Service is the highest expression of leadership, the point at which personal ambition gives way to collective transformation. Many imagine leadership as power, status, or control. But the truest form of leadership is rooted in humility, the willingness to use your strength, influence, and wisdom for the upliftment of others. Service is not weakness, it is the ultimate proof of strength. It takes courage to put aside ego, to put the needs of others before your own, and to recognize that leadership is not about being served, but about serving. When a leader embraces service, they step into a role far greater than themselves. They understand that their gifts, talents, and opportunities are not theirs alone, but entrusted to them to bless others. Service shifts the focus from what can I gain to what can I give, and in that shift, leadership gains its deepest meaning. People follow leaders who serve because service builds trust. It demonstrates authenticity, compassion, and integrity. It shows that the leader is not driven by self-interest, but by a desire to create impact that outlives them. Service also requires detachment. A leader who serves with hidden motives seeking recognition, applause, or reward has not yet understood the essence of service. True service is not transactional. It is unconditional. It is giving without expectation, pouring out without demanding return. This kind of service may not always be appreciated, but it is always transformative. The seeds you plant through service often bear fruit long after you have sown them, sometimes in ways you may never see. Detachment allows you to serve with purity, to love without chains. and to lead without manipulation. At the same time, service is not about self-neglect or martyrdom. It does not mean abandoning your own needs or diminishing your own value. Rather, it is about finding strength in balance, taking care of yourself so you can pour into others from a place of fullness, not emptiness. A leader who serves effectively knows that their well-being is essential to sustaining their ability to give. They understand that service requires energy, clarity, and resilience, and so they nurture themselves to remain strong for those they are called to serve. Service multiplies influence. People may admire success, but they are moved by sacrifice. They may respect authority, but they are transformed by compassion. When a leader consistently serves, they create loyalty that cannot be bought and respect that cannot be demanded. Those who are touched by service are more likely to rise themselves, to carry forward the values they have received, and to become leaders who serve in turn. This ripple effect is how true leadership creates legacies through service that inspires generations. Ultimately, service redefines power. It shows that greatness is not measured by how high you climb, but by how many lives you lift. The leader who serves does not lose authority. They gain it because their leadership is rooted not in fear or control, but in love and authenticity. Service is the mark of a leader who has transcended ego, embraced purpose, and chosen to live not just for themselves, but for the world they are called to impact. Leadership is not a crown you wear, it is a responsibility you carry. It is not about the weight of titles, but about the weight of truth, discipline, and vision that you are willing to live by. The greatest leaders are not remembered for what they demanded, but for what they gave, for the courage they embodied, and for the lives they transformed by daring to walk in purpose. Within you lies the same seed of greatness, the same divine spark that calls you to rise, to detach from fear, to silence doubt, and to lead with clarity and conviction. The world does not need more followers of circumstance. It needs leaders of destiny. And that leader is not waiting for you somewhere outside. That leader has been waiting for you to awaken within. Step forward with courage. Take charge of your destiny, and let your life become the evidence that true leadership begins the moment you choose to lead yourself.